Ti conosciamo fin dall'eterno passato. Più veloce, più veloce.
Aspettami.
Non possiamo fermarci. Corriamo più veloci.
Sì, verso il sole.
In questa vita siamo i tuoi custodi.
Anime che vivono un'esperienza terrena. Saremo di nuovo insieme. Siamo gli echi del tuo passato eterno. Perché è stato così difficile? Perché ho dovuto soffrire così tanto?
L'hai scelto tu stessa, non ricordi?
Non voglio
Non ancora,
mai
Betty,
più tornarci.
ma per ora impara.
Mai più. Betty, sei in anticipo. Ma dato che sei qui, guarda, ricorda. Benvenuta, sorella. Il tuo viaggio è appena iniziato. Cammina con noi nella luce. Finalmente sei tornata a casa, Betty. Cammina con noi. Ritorna. Sii testimone. Capisco tutto. Queste sono vite. Tessiamo la trama di ogni destino. Ogni filo è importante. Tessiamo la trama di ogni destino. Ogni filo è importante. Basta così! ciò che devo.
Ecco fatto. Non fa più male, vero?
Grazie. Sei molto gentile. Vedi che cose meravigliose hai
Hai
fatto?
ricordato la tua missione sulla Terra.
Ma ne hai ancora tante altre da fare. Accetto il mio dovere.
Betty, è ora di tornare.
Siamo gli echi del tuo passato eterno.
Siamo i tuoi guardiani eterni.
Non sarai mai sola,
Infinito!
non lo sei mai stata.
È il potere dell'amore.
È tutto vero. Non abbiate paura.
Non dimenticherò mai.
Joe, I'm excited your life's journey, and before the big event, and I ask you is, what were your thoughts about dying and death before your near-death experience?
When I was a child at a boarding school, and I was about 4 years old, I was told that because I was Native American and because I was part Irish, that I was a heathen and a sinner and that I would be going to hell. And part of their help for me was to educate me about the ways of God. What I learned instead was fear of him, frightened, and I couldn't imagine why the color of my skin and the fact that I'm Native American why would God select this type of people to put into hell? And so I was fearful all my life. I was fearful of dying. I didn't particularly believe that God was the God that they were teaching, but I didn't know who God was. And it was frightening, very frightening for me. But that was just, that wasn't something that led my life. I think I pushed that into the subconscious mind and just got on with living. And I had a low self-esteem, low self-worth, all the things that come with child abuse. And so at the age of 31, I had married young and had 7 children. I know.
Wow. I have a couple and I'm exhausted.
I'm sure I was too, to some extent. But anyway, it was very frightening to me to go through that experience of life, just growing up. But I wanted a family that I could be with forever, and so I married and had my children, raised them the way that I wanted to raise them. I actually took them and put them into churches, only to become disillusioned and take them out because they were told that they were sinners and had to get on their knees. And they're like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, just babies. And when they came back and told me that they had to spend time on their knees begging God for forgiveness, that just did it for me and religion. Mm-hmm. At the age of 31, I went into the hospital to have a hysterectomy. And it was during that time, first time I'd ever had any surgery or anything at all. I'm fairly healthy woman, have always been healthy. Went into the hospital. I hemorrhaged during the surgery and right shortly after. And they had staff problems, and there were a few nurses that were around. They told me that I was fine after the surgery, except for a slight hemorrhage that they had repaired, and bedded me down for the night. I awoke and I felt myself dying, actually. You just feel this sick feeling, and I knew something was wrong, but I was too weak to call for the nurse. And the next thing I knew, I was out of my body. I went up to the ceiling and turned to look down, and I could see myself laying there. I came down for a closer look, and I wasn't frightened. I was amazed at what I saw. And shortly thereafter, 3 men in brown robes and golden belts appeared by the side of the bed. I knew them, but it was taking me a while to really recognize them. But I knew I was comfortable with them. And they said that I had died prematurely, but that everything would be okay. I was worried about my family. I wanted to go home and see them. And so I went out, my spirit went out through the window, and I arrived at my home. My husband was sitting in a chair, reading a newspaper. The kids were running all over the place. He had promised to put them to bed early, and he didn't. I remember being annoyed at him. Even out of my body, I was annoyed at my husband.
Once a mama, always a mama.
Yeah, I think so. And but I knew that they would be fine. I just had this. It seemed that the longer I was out of my body, the more knowledge I was able to receive and accept. I think more than receiving. I think it's there. It's just challenging to go from being a mortal being to being a spiritual being. And I could see into each one of their lives, and I knew that they would grow up and that they would be fine, and it was okay to leave them. I went back to the hospital bed and started traveling down into a tunnel-like effect, just spiraling down it. I mean, it was moving. I was moving too, but not twirling like it was moving me at such a tremendous pace. I came to a dark place, very dark, very black. It's pitch black. Well, it was pitch black in this space, but I felt no fear. And I have claustrophobia. So it was challenging for me, even in that moment, to think, I have no fears. I'm not frightened of this black. In fact, I felt like I was being bathed in love. It was warm and beautiful. It was, I've often said, if I didn't know what was beyond this blackness, I would have wanted to stay there forever. I could live eternity in that space. But it didn't last for long. And there I saw a pinpoint of light that became brighter and brighter. It was almost like a searchlight. It moved around a bit, not a lot, but just a little bit, where I was watching it, and then it focused on me. And as it focused on me, it broadened. But more than that, it drew me out of that blackness and right into that and up and out. I was traveling at a speed, I can't even tell you what that speed would be like. And I've often thought, was it speed? Was I traveling, or was I going through a transformation, my, spiritual transformation? And of course, I don't know. But when I came to the end of that light, and the light was brighter than ever, it just widened, and it turned, there was a being in the light, and I could see the shape and the outline, but the light was so bright. And then it just, a golden halo around him, and I could see that it was a male figure. As I got closer, then I knew who this man was. I knew who he was because I had always known him. Always. Just like the three that met me at my bedside. I knew that I had known them. In fact, they said, we've known each other for eternities. Well, I had heard of eternity, but I had never heard of eternities.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, my gosh, I knew them and I loved them. But I knew that this was Jesus, and I knew that I loved him, and that I had always known him, perhaps for eternities as well. And then what surprised me as I thought back on it, when I'm going through the process, there was no thinking. It was just responding in a very natural, normal way to this beautiful man that I knew that I had known forever. So it would be like dying and meeting your mother or your father, and you run to them to embrace them. And that's what I did with him. And I ran to him. And as I ran to him, he opened his arms to receive me in them. And we embraced. And I said, why did you send me to earth? Why did you send me down there? I never, ever, ever want to go there again. And I said, much less send me down to become an Indian and an Irish person who was criticized and condemned for everything you can think of. And I just ranted and raved. I was just irritated. He chuckled. He leaned back and he was amused. And I thought at the time, how could he be amused at something when I feel so irritated, even angry about? And he said, but you chose it.
Right.
I said, I did. He says, yes, you did. He said, every spirit here is at a different level of growth. Everyone. And each one is on earth to be tested, to test what their growth that they have acquired thus far. And he said, and you chose to go down to the family that would give you the greatest challenges. I said, wow. I don't think I would do that now. He said, you probably wouldn't have to. And he went on and he just, and as he spoke, it wasn't even words. It was like, it was more like he was speaking to my heart because it resonated in me. I mean, everything, every thought, every feeling. It was wonderful, beautiful. I can't even tell you. I'm resisting breaking out in tears even now because the glory of this experience cannot be put into words.
Mhm.
We don't have the language. We don't have, it's feelings that you have. And he went on to, and I'm bubbling with questions now because, my life was pretty tough. He said, but you endured it. You endured it. He said, you have acquired greater growth because of all your challenges. Everyone is challenged by what they need to understand and to grow from. And he said, and you endured it. And I said, I did, because I really didn't think that I endured too much. He says, you endured it. And he said, and I just went on, asking him all these questions. And he just kept chuckling. And he said, I called them guides because they became my guides, but and I can't call them angels because they didn't have wings like
We would know.
yeah, they didn't have those. But two ladies came over and he says, show her everything she wants to be shown. Take her and show her. And they said, okay. And so they did. And they took around. And one of them I wrote about in my book, Embraced by Light, is about the garden, the place that I look back forward to. I don't look back, I look back on, but I look forward to experiencing again because it was the most magnificent garden in the world. The movie Avatar captures it in the human way that they can, but of course it is nothing as, even though it was brilliant and beautiful, one of my favorite movies of all times. But I think I watched it about, I don't know, 9 times or so, and then bought the DVD, and I still watch it, and I show my grandkids. And I explain heaven is like this, because when I stepped into the garden, I always liked grass to hit me, or it wasn't grass; it was more like weeds across where I lived. There was a field, and I would go out there and walk in there, and there was some grass, some green, but it would be high. And early in the spring, it'd be up to about to my calves, and I'd love to walk in it and feel it brushing my legs. I don't know, there was something cool and calm about that. To me, it was wonderful. And as I looked at this grass that I was walking on, it was a green that you just can't even imagine, because it's a green, but each blade of grass had life. It had spirit. It had energy. Each blade, imagine that. And as I walked on that, and I imagined that it was taller, so it could brush the back of my calves, and it grew. It grew up to right where I wanted it. Like I said, we communicated in some nonverbal way, and it grew up like Avatar. So it made the same type of thing. And the spirit, and they showed it the grass and everything brightening like a light bulb coming up on inside of it. But what you see in heaven is greater than that. It's the spirit of each plant, each flower, each blade of grass. It's the spirit that you're sensitive feeling, and it's all beautiful. Just, beyond imagination. At one point, I saw a rose and I crawled into it. I went over it, I held it, cupped it in my hands, and was just smelling it. It was wonderful. And as I was smelling it and feeling it and loving it, it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. Now, I've often wondered, was it growing or was I shrinking? Because I went inside of it. It beckoned me to come in. And I went inside the rose and went clear down into the stem of it. And the fragrance was wonderful. And it loved me and I loved it. There was great love in that rose, immense love. And I remember coming out, when I came out of it, and it was still a huge rose, I remember kneeling down by it and just praising God for that experience. I mean, that's how glorious that it was. It really was. Unimaginable, really. I mean, I would never have thought that I could go inside of a rose.
What's finding fascinating about your story so far is that it's so detailed.
Yes.
It is one of the more, I mean, I've spoken to many people who've had near-death experiences, and I've never heard something so, you're so detailed. It almost seems like a mixture of Avatar and Alice in Wonderland.
Absolutely. I studied some of the background of the Avatar because I thought someone there had to have experienced
A near-deach experience. Did you find anybody?
No, I haven't really. I mean, I didn't go that far into it, but it just really amazed me, and I haven't experienced Alice in Wonderland, so I don't know about that, because when I was in the boarding school, we weren't allowed to read books or to watch. Well, there wasn't any television, and that's how we glorify God, not by all this other stuff, but by that. And all that knowledge just comes into you when you.
It's flooding into you.
Yeah, you become enlightened, and that's what came into me. And I'm going, wow, well, yeah, that makes total sense. Not like as if someone's talking to me, and yet someone is feeding me all this knowledge, and it was incredible.
I mean, it's been a heck of an adventure for you.
Well, it has been, and I know people could find this if they were to go on the internet. But I've had successes that are incredible. I met one of my favorite people of all times. Of course, I'm older, so I mean, Dr. Welby. I don't know if you know that movie.
I don't.
Okay, Robert Young. I probably the only actor that I just was in love with.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, because we all fall in love with actors and actresses, people that we just dream of them. They're just so everything that we think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
After reading Embraced by the Light, he called me. Yeah. Yeah. And so someone called and said, Betty, Eadie, I said to me, we have Robert Young on the phone. He'd like to talk to you. And I says, Robert Young? And I'm thinking, no way. Anyway, I was able to visit with him. He had a luncheon at his house for me. I've met, and these to me are successes in that they reached out to me because they were having struggles that Embraced by Light help. Prince, I don't even know if you know who Prince is.
I mean, Prince.
The Prince.
Yeah, I'm not that young.
I was invited to Paisley Park.
Yeah.
And sat and visited with him for quite a while.
He's such a remarkable soul. Oh.
Well, now my son was mesmerized by Prince. I didn't really know who Prince was, to be honest, because I'm older and not in that, I mean, I've heard of him, of course, but I didn't, I wasn't really, he just was, I'm more the Elvis Presley.
Beatles time. Yeah.
Elvis Presley, that kind of thing.